Good morning. And it's a beautiful morning this morning, day after Thanksgiving as I'm recording this. And I'd just like to wish everyone a happy and a healthy week. Belated Thanksgiving wishes. And do a shameless plug for a movie. Obviously, I'm not getting paid for it, but I did see Wakanda Forever yesterday, IMAX, at the local theater, and I thought it was great fun and a really good film. So if you're into Marvel comics like I am, I recommend it. It's a distraction and a treat. Friends of mine have saying that they are impressed with the level of giving this Thanksgiving. Their pantries, don't let me dissuade anyone from giving more to pantries, are overflowing with goods. They're now even asking for personal items to be donated. It's kind of a shame that we need to have so many pantries, that there are still so many people who are food insecure or are homeless because the rents have gone up, even though they say rents are stabilizing. Folks here in America are not seeing the stabilization of inflation yet. A lot of people are still being let go from their jobs. And I'm hopeful that there will be new opportunities. I'm hopeful in this lame duck Congress that we've got that we can overcome the voting suppression we're seeing across the states and finally get a voting bill act. In Georgia, I don't even know if they have time to register between the end of the last election, the general election, and the new runoff. But whatever it takes, folks, you gotta vote. You gotta register, and you gotta vote for Warnock. Remember, the last day of voting is December 6th. Doesn't give anyone much time. It's a little over a week, which is kind of unfair when you think that in the general election or other runoffs, there's been 9 weeks. But we got to deal with the hand we're dealt. And 4 million people have got to step up and vote for Warnock, a decent man who stands for your ideals. And then we really know we've got the Senate sewed up. And maybe then we can pass things like the Voting Rights Bill, or perhaps the Four of the Families Act, which would be truly wonderful, and maybe do a War Production Act to get us on a footing that says we gotta get rid of fossil fuels and start phasing them out. So we've got a lot to do between now and the end of the year. And I hope Congress is up to the task. I'd also, if I had my wish list starting, and Lord knows they should, because the normal Christmas tree sellers that come here every single year, they started 2 days before Thanksgiving. There they are, same 2 kids. I watch them as they grow up and start selling the Christmas trees from their Canadian farm. Christmas is in the air, and the Rockefeller Center tree is already there. And I think the lighting ceremony takes place the same day election ends in Georgia, which is around December 6th. This is the holiday season. Let's have some holiday cheer. Unfortunately, a lot of labor can't say the same about holiday cheer. A lot of people are feeling that they're being abused and they're not getting equal pay for equal time put in that work. Amazon employees, I understand, are on strike today. Can't keep abusing labor. If you think you can run a business without labor and labor is unimportant, then you don't know anything about business. I know about business, and I employed labor and I paid them well. And I knew that they could be anywhere from 44 to 50% or more of my overheads. Materials, maybe 25%, and the rest was for running the business and my salary. But labor has to be paid. Now we've got the best prosecutor in the NLRB ever, and what do we have? Understaffing. Seems to me the fifth estate, which is the bureaucrats in Washington, D.C., who make all of our enforcement of laws work. They got to have more of them in Washington, D.C. We need the old bureaucrats who knew how to enforce law. Gotta have supplementary income for these people. Gotta bring back the 20-30% that we've lost all over. After all, one prosecutor in the NLRB can't possibly arbitrate every single case that comes before her. And she's the best person for the job because she wrote or helped write the clean slate for labor. So we need people there. We need people in antitrust enforcement. You can't let corporations say, well, I intended to do right, but unfortunately, I didn't do right after all. I did. I took all the data for myself. I made it impossible for my competitors to compete, and now I've cornered the market. Boo-hoo. Well, boo-hoo. Who suffers? The consumer suffers. And the other corporations suffer. And I think consumers have had enough suffering. We've gotten inflation because of corporate greed, and we can reverse the inflation, not just by raising interest rates, which I'm glad they're going to back off on, but by enforcing antitrust laws. Don't look at the low-hanging fruit of some fees that antitrust enforcers are going to look at. Look at antitrust itself. We've got 3 mega businesses controlling pharmaceuticals, agriculture, the middleman in agriculture. Simon & Schuster, they decided now they're not going to let them become a mega firm. It was bad for business. I guess the publishing business doesn't contribute too much to the congressional caucuses. But the others, there's no limit on the greed. No limit at all. It's time. It's time for everyone to say, hey, I'm working too hard. I'm not getting paid for that work. It has nothing to do with my self-worth because I was making more money before. I deserve to make more money now. And I think when everyone realizes that they don't have to be taken for granted and they don't have to be stiffed on wages, I think you'll see a hell of a lot more strikes. They're already talking about a major rail strike and whether or not it'll cripple the country. Well, if people deserve better wages and decent benefits and a safe working place, by golly, they should go on strike if that's their mechanism. And I think that's the way to go. It's the only way for people to take notice of you. It's the only way to bring corporations to the table. Just like everything else in our life. Talk about climate change. We know we're in transition. We got to get off of fossil fuels. We got to stop the subsidies or decrease them and give the money to people who are developing new technologies, even new nuclear power plants that have a smaller footprint and are not placed on major earthquake faults. We seem to have done that in the past. So there's a lot that can be done. We only have maybe 10% of our energy comes from renewables. The rest is still gas, coal, biofuels, but not solar and not wind. We can do better. And I think we're going to have to if we don't want to keep re-engineering everything we've got in terms of genetically altered seeds, if we want to reclaim the water resources that were lost, we're going to have to change the way we do business in this country. Our lives do indeed depend upon it. So does everyone else's. Just like the war in Ukraine doesn't affect just the Ukrainians. It affects everybody. Food insecurity throughout the world. Safflower oil, I heard, right here in America, it's hard to get on a regular basis. And Ukraine is one of the major producers of safflower oil. So we're interconnected. Our supply chains work together. And sooner or later, our leaders are going to have to realize they're interconnected also. They got to work together. Every country is going to have to come up with their blueprint for reducing carbon. China's number one. We're half the amount of China in terms of tons or millions of tons of carbon released into the atmosphere. And all of us, if we want to survive and thrive, we're going to have to harness our carbon footprint. It's not that difficult. Technologies exist, and it will create more jobs for people. I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful because I think people know what's happening in our world. People are not going to take it too much longer, and they're going to demand better working conditions, and they're going to demand that we save our environment, and they're going to demand that we have early childhood learning, and that inflation is really curbed so people can eat with dignity and actually move out of their families' homes. I think it's going to happen because we are now in a world of transition. We should be going like this, and we're going like this. Everyone's pulling apart. But this is a time of change, and we all know it. So let's see what this Congress does over the next couple of days before the end of the year and the new Congress comes in. And let's all of us think of perhaps a third party that embraces all of us who are not in the extreme and pushes good laws for all of us. Oh, and I almost forgot. I'd like a ban on assault weapons and those large magazines. Nobody needs them unless you're committing murder on a massive scale. I'd also like to know who are the folks who own all the guns in this country, because they should be registered and they should be logged in with the local police department, FBI, and other security services in our country. Not saying we're taking away from you, but we certainly should know what you got. We know you have to register when you have a car. Same for a boat, same for a plane, same for a business, Same for an apartment or a house. Not asking gun owners to do anything other than the rest of us do with every other ownership that we have. Guns do kill, and there's a direct correlation between the more guns you got in circulation and the more people die. Dying is not what I see in my near future, and I don't want to see it in yours either. I'd like to be able to continue living the good life, and I'd like all of you to live the good life as well. So, God bless you all. See you next week, and I'm looking forward to it. For me, these are happy days. I hope I can say that my community is experiencing happy days as well. Thank you.